And hello, everybody. Welcome aboard into the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP-TV. It's The Big Hit. I'm your host, Josh Hill. We've got a lot to talk about here tonight, and we'll begin on the hardwood talking some NBA and recap the return of Paul George and also take a look at the Western Conference and predict the order that the Western Conference will shake out. And then we'll move to college basketball and look at some key moments in the national championship game between Duke and Wisconsin. And then we will hit the baseball diamond in the world of the MLB with our call to the bullpen, set some expectations for the teams in the National League Central, and also look at some recent trades that have gone down the wire in baseball as well. Then we'll close things out talking NHL as the playoffs draw near. The push to the playoffs is on, and we will ask which conference has the best chance to win the Stanley Cup. So ladies and gentlemen, keep your hands and feet inside the ride at all times. It's the Big Hit right now. And welcome into the Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen, coming at you live from the IUP-TV studio. So happy you've joined us here tonight. We're going to begin our discussion here tonight with some basketball talk, and joining us for that, it's our resident ballers, you can call them, Vaughn Dalzell, Tyrell Walker. Guys, let's go ahead and begin in Indiana, not here in Indiana, Pennsylvania, but Indiana, the state. Talk about the Indiana Pacers a little bit, and one particular player, Paul George, made his debut against the Miami Heat. A really good effort for Paul George, 13 points in just 15 minutes of play for PG. He comes back, and the Pacers are really trending in the right direction. They have a chance to make it into the playoffs this season. So my question is, do you think the Pacers can overtake Boston for that final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference?
I really think they can, Josh. I think that Paul George came back at the right exact time. As you said, he had 12 points. 13 points, in 15 minutes of play, 5 of 12 shooting. He played very well. He was not scared to go in the basket after his broken leg injury, so he looked very well. And if they can put it together as a team effort, I think they can overtake the Celtics for the 8th spot. But also watch out for the Heat. They have the easiest road to make it to the 8th seed so far.
I like hearing that. I like hearing that Heat talk. But as far as Paul George goes, props to him from coming back from a career-ending injury, let's be honest. And we can definitely see even though he wasn't afraid to go to the basket, he was still a little weary on his jump shots. You know, he just did break his leg. So, but even though I advocate him, staying out a little bit longer, this could be the psychological surge that gives the Pacers the they need to get to overtake the Boston in that last spot. Because when you got a team that can ball, and then your leader comes back who's in his prime, that can kill, that can move a lot of mountains, and that could be the very thing that takes him there.
Indiana, as a team last year, had so many pieces that really helped propel them to a fantastic year, eventually losing to Miami. But Paul George was one of the mainstays in that lineup, so good to have him back. Of course, hurting himself in that Team USA scrimmage, coming back just now. So it's been a long road, long recovery for Paul George. We'll see what he can do as we close out the regular season. But let's move into the Western Conference, where the 8th spot is really a highly contested position right now, that of course being the last spot in the Western Conference. The Pelicans and the Thunder currently are jockeying for a position to make it into the playoffs. So who do you think will get into the playoffs at that number 8 spot, New Orleans or Oklahoma City?
I think that's a really tough question, Josh, mostly because both teams really control their own destiny at this point. And New Orleans has 4 games out of the remaining 6 that have played winning teams. So I think they have a very long shot. It's hard. And the way Westbrook's been playing lately, I think he can carry this team into the playoffs, but I don't think they'll make it very far in the playoffs when they do make it.
I got you. Well, since the Western Conference, excuse me, allergy season's in. But since the Western Conference seems to have the best of everything, maybe New Orleans can develop some sort of otherworldly technology to where they can clone a Russell Westbrook and put him on their team. Otherwise, they don't have a shot. Westbrook's lost his mind. He's going to find a way to get him in there, to be honest with you. I lost count how many triple doubles he's gotten.
Yeah.
It's probably it's looking ugly for anybody that guards them, anybody that's looking to stop them from going where they need to go. They got it. They got it. It's not a big deal.
It's approaching 15 for triple doubles for Russell Westbrook, rather. And let's delve into the numbers a little bit more, Vaughn. You said 4 games against teams who have winning records. New Orleans has the 3rd hardest remaining schedule left in the NBA. When you compare that to Oklahoma City, the 14th hardest remaining schedule. So projections have New Orleans at about a 25% chance to make it into the playoffs. So Oklahoma City seems like they have the inside track for that. But let's talk about a team that is going to be in the playoffs, and we all know that. That's the Golden State Warriors. Many projections have Golden State winning the Western Conference. So What are your chances that Golden State can win the Larry O'Brien Trophy?
I think they have the best shot out of any team. I mean, they're clearly the one seed in the playoff rankings, but Steph Curry's been playing out his mind. He's gelling with Klay Thompson like they have been. Andrew Bogut and David Lee have really stepped up and have been injury-riddled this season, which has been big for them. But I think they have the best shot out of any team in the whole NBA to win the thing. I think Steve Kerr really took this team. Mark Jackson coached them great last year, but Steve Kerr took them to a whole nother level. And the role players have stepped up. Harrison Barnes and Iguodala. Draymond Green's been huge for them. So I think the Warriors have the best shot to make it, and I think they're on a hot streak right now.
I definitely agree, and I definitely agree with what you said about Bogut. He's their key piece and being able to stay healthy. And as far as their odds go, I mean, how does 63 and 14 sound? You know, that's kind of you think about it. You got 29 other teams with grown men who play professionally just like you, and you've only lost 14 games. You're serious? Steph Curry, I don't know what got injected into him over the summer, but you know it's working. Him, Klay, and when everybody on your team can shoot and consistently shoot, as even your defenders, it's a wash. It's a wrap.
Yeah, you named a litany of players. So many players that this team has. And Vaughn, you touched on it a little bit. I'd like to expand on this topic more. Talk about the head coach, Steve Kerr. Of course, Mark Jackson was there, did a great job, but Steve Kerr has really done a phenomenal job, if you want to call it that, here with the Warriors. He's been part of their unbelievable season to this point. So how much credit do you give Steve Kerr for the Warriors' success this year?
I mean, I give him a lot of credit. 63 wins in your rookie year is fantastic. It's phenomenal. I really think if I had a vote, I would vote him as a head coach of the year. I think coming in and taking a team that's already that talented to the level that they're on right now as clearly the best team in the NBA, you win that award. And I think that Atlanta Hawks have had a great season, and the coach has really picked them up and everything, but I think the Warriors are like the clear favorite, as we just spoke on. So I would just have to say that Steve Kerr's played a huge role, and he is the coach of the year easily.
Yeah, and I couldn't be too mad if somebody gave him that award. I do, however, think, though I'm not taking anything away from Steve Kerr, I don't want people to start to take away from these boys on Golden State and what they're doing. I don't want people to start losing their minds, because at the end of the day, I'm always an advocate for, I give the players just a little bit more credit than the coach all the time, because they're the athletes who go out and run and jump and fall and dunk, and the coach isn't. He draws up the plays. Now, Steve Kerr, on the other hand, I think him being a player and he's the perfect guy. Him having been a prolific shooter in his career, having a team full of shooters, he can do what Mark Jackson, no offense to him either, couldn't. And I give him, I give him half. I'd make it half and half. But I don't want people losing their minds. The players still get it done at the end of the day.
Yeah, you certainly made a really great point, Tyrell, and it's something that a lot of people note. How much does a coach really have an impact on the game? Of course, the lower you go down in basketball, high school, and college, you would think a coach has a lot more of an influence on a particular team and their identity. But when you get into the NBA with those grown men, as you guys alluded to, how much does a coach really have that much to do, or how much is it just these guys have been playing basketball their entire life and they know what they're doing? That's really hard to quantify that and put that into a number, but something to consider as we move along here as well. But let's look at the Western Conference, again, stick here in the West, and look at the two through 6 seeds. Say that 5 times fast, ladies and gentlemen, because those seeds are only separated by 2 games, so a lot of wiggle room could possibly happen in the Western Conference. How do you think this will shake out when it's all said and done?
Well, I really think the Spurs have a really good chance of moving up. They play Houston twice, and if they can beat Houston 1 or 2 times, they have a good shot at moving up a couple spots. They just played Golden State at home and beat them by over 15 points, which is very big for an aging Spurs team that not a lot of people like to watch. But I think they have a great chance, along with the Clippers, who play Memphis and Phoenix. And if they can beat those 2 teams, the remaining 3 games are all against losing teams. So I think they have a good shot to move up a spot or 2 also.
Definitely. The Spurs, being the Spurs, got a chance for guard. It didn't matter if they were the 16th seed, got a chance. As far as, I think the Memphis Grizzlies and the Houston Rockets, I think they can definitely go at it. I'd like to see them go at it to see who jocks for 2 and 3. I think it might come down to whether James Harden feels like it, if he feels like doing something or not. But the Grizzlies, I favor them because they've always lacked offense. That's been the bane of their existence for like the past 3 playoffs. But they have a guy by the name of Jeff Green, who can not only do offense, he does defense as well. He's long. They have Courtney Lee. You got Zach Randolph abusing you down low consistently, as well as Marc Gasol. I think they might be even though they're third, they might be the sleepers of the entire playoffs, to be honest.
Yeah, no question about it. When you break it down, the Western Conference, a lot of quality teams, and one seed or another may not be make or break, but when you come down to Game 7, always nice to have that home game on your home court. So that's why these teams are working so hard so that they can be rewarded for their efforts. But we'll leave that discussion here, ladies and gentlemen. NBA playoffs approaching rapidly. We're loving every second of it with Vaughn Dalzell and Tyrell Walker. We'll step out, come back with some college basketball talk right here on The Big Hit.
Oh, hey, Devontae. Better work on something, man. I want you to check it out.
Keep working on that.
Okay.
And welcome back into The Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to stick with the basketball theme here tonight and talk some college basketball at the Division I level. And joining us, it's some college basketball extraordinaires. These guys know basketball. They've been watching it all year long, as have I. It's Kyle Condor, Malusi Kitchen guys. Probably our last college basketball discussion for quite a while, so we really have to not hold anything back. Let's have that mantra here for this segment. We'll recap the Final Four in the national championship, and we'll begin with Wisconsin's defeat of the Kentucky Wildcats, ending their perfect season, a 71-64 victory for the Wisco Badgers. What were the keys to success for Wisconsin coming out of the Big Ten?
I think in all, Wisconsin handled the pressure really well. Of course, Frank Kaminsky was able to deal with Karl Towns and Willie Cauley-Stein a lot better than people expected that he would, because those two guys are going to be top 10 picks in the NBA. And that's not saying Kaminsky won't be, but a lot of people wondered how he would do against NBA talent, and he prevailed. He did really well. And of course, Sam Decker played just as well as he had throughout the entire tournament. So Wisconsin really just did what it was that they have been doing throughout the entire tournament, and they were able to take one of the most difficult runs possible into the national championship and leap over Kentucky, whom a lot of people thought was no doubt going to win this tournament.
Yeah, I kind of said it better myself. I think the biggest thing that everybody needs to realize is Wisconsin, I saw people on, social media saying, oh, Wisconsin, they didn't deserve to win. No, they did deserve to win this game, and they deserved to be there, and they were the better team that day. And that's the thing about the March Madness. It takes one game, whether you're good, bad, whatever, it takes one game to lose. And Kentucky didn't play well down the stretch. Frank Kaminsky absolutely dominated this game, and he showed why he was the player of the year. Sam Decker hit some huge shots, and down the stretch, Kentucky couldn't finish. They couldn't finish, and even though with all the experience that they've been there before to national championship, the Harrison Twins have hit some big shots in the tournament last year, but they just couldn't do it this time. And you can't dig yourself into a hole against a great team like Wisconsin and then expect to win. It's just not going to happen.
Wisconsin had that dynamic 1-2 punch to defeat Kentucky, and you say it takes one game, and it takes a shooting performance like Wisconsin had, shooting almost 48% from the floor. Kentucky as a team had held opponents to around 35% all season long as a team, so Wisconsin really shot the lights out. They were 50% from three-point range as well and ended Kentucky's season. So of course, for Kentucky, the season did not end the way they wanted to after falling to the Badgers. Karl Anthony Towns saying after the game he didn't care about the record, just the trophy that came with the record. So what are your takeaways from Kentucky's 38 and done season?
I just have to say that I pretty much saw this coming all along, and halfway through the season, of course, you had to predict that Kentucky was going to win the tournament. Undefeated. The way they were demolishing teams proved that they were the best team in the country. But every great team is a mishap. And in the SEC, Kentucky did not see the competition that they saw in the tournament. So, of course, they were able to enter the tournament undefeated as SEC champions. But at the same time, when they saw a team like Wisconsin, a team that they hadn't, a team of that caliber, they had not played one like Wisconsin since early in the season. So I think they were kind of caught off guard, and it almost made me realize that if Kentucky were in the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, they probably weren't going to be undefeated going into the tournament. They were in a weak SEC conference. So really I wasn't surprised, to say the least. Wisconsin was clearly the better team, and I think we saw the two best teams play in the national championship.
I mean, I think it's interesting to say because I think some people want to take credit away from what Kentucky did, but I did think the better team won that night. I think let's put it in perspective here. They're going to go down as one of the greatest teams to play, in my opinion. 38-1. That's pretty impressive. You can't take anything away. Only a handful of teams have been able to ever enter the tournament undefeated, and they did that. And they almost made it to the national championship game, but almost doesn't cut it.
Right.
I think it's really impressive, but it comes. I'm not going to say I saw this coming, because I didn't, but I had my doubts earlier about they were going to go 40-0 because I think the media put too much pressure on them, and I don't think they succumbed to the pressure, but I just think, it's hard to live up to that when you have as much talent and they're, constantly in the spotlight and people were looking for them to lose. That's the other thing. So it's hard to say whether or not I saw this coming, but it was still a great season. Congrats to all that they accomplished, but definitely go down as one of the best teams, and definitely, it's going to be memorable.
Yeah, I think as basketball fans, we're all going to remember this Kentucky team for years to come. I think we'll all look back and remember this 38-1 season. But real quick, do you just want to talk about something that kind of happened post-game as Andrew Harrison made some not suitable for work comments on Frank Kaminsky. He was asked about the 7-footer and used the phrase F that N. Not very good there. Real quick, don't want to spend too much time on this. What are your thoughts after this guy who is an aspiring NBA talent does something like this?
I mean, I'm going to take the same take that one of our idols, Stephen A. Smith, used, and he said that it's just kind of the way of life, or the kind of a term that I guess kids our age use frequently. And of course, Aaron Harrison used it on a stage that he probably should not have. You can't say something like that on national TV. I don't care what the slur is, what the word is. You can't say any curse word on a nationally televised program that you have to assume millions of people are watching. Yeah. And now with social media, of course, it's going to get blown out of proportion. I'll admit to you both that I did not see it happen live, but it was all over my Twitter feed. That's just the way things are now, and that's why you have to watch what you say in every single setting that there is. So I think he made a bad choice. Of course, he's probably going to go to the NBA, and there's no games left for Kentucky this season, or any college basketball team for that matter. So I'm not sure what the punishment is going to be, but something has to be done. Realistically, it doesn't matter what he said specifically, but something has to be done to show other kids and other incoming freshmen, whomever it is, that you cannot use words like that in front of a nationally televised camera.
Yeah, I think the real issue is, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is that that term has become used in like this generation's language. So, and he was very unprofessional, and you can't do that at the NBA level if you want to be a professional, because professionals, he was clearly a sore loser too. Yeah. You could see, because he thought he was clearly off mic. And I actually did get to watch it on the highlights, but he was clearly thought he was off mic, and then he said the words that he uttered. It was just, it was wrong of him, and he knew he was wrong. But I don't know if you can necessarily do anything about it, since he is going to leave for the NBA. And it's kind of hard to put a discipline on that word, since it's like, how do you police that? Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't. Right. It doesn't really, how do you control everybody and what they say? So I think the main point is, like, he made a mistake, and people, just like you said, have to be careful of what they say in like every setting.
He tried to whisper it to his teammates, maybe as a joke. Obviously didn't mean it for it to go over the microphone, just try to utter something real quick to one of his teammates after that question was asked, but certainly can't do that in today's day and age with social media. As you said, people don't see it on TV, but they're going to see it through Twitter, Facebook, and all those social media outlets. But let's talk about the Duke Blue Devils a little bit in their Final Four matchup with Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans. An 81-61 dismantling of Michigan State for the Blue Devils sent them to the national title game. Why was Duke so dominant against Michigan State, who really had a fantastic run to the Final Four?
Well, Duke's the best team in the country, and in that game particularly, I do not think it was Duke that won by a lot. I think it was more Michigan State being a little afraid of the spotlight they were put in. I don't want to say Michigan State had an easy run to the Final Four, because by no means did they. But realistically, Duke is a team of the highest caliber. They were the best team in the country. They proved it throughout the entire tournament, throughout the entire month of March for that matter. But realistically, Michigan State just did not see anyone like Duke until they played Duke, and they were just caught up in the spotlight. But I have to give Duke credit. Like I've said a few times already, they're the best team in the country. They proved it against Michigan State, and of course we'll talk about the national championship in a little bit, but Duke definitely just got the best of a dismantled Michigan State team on that night.
Yeah, and I was depressed to see this game when I saw the score. I can't even really call it a game because when I saw the score, it was almost unbelievable to me that this was a Final Four game. I was like, really, 20 points, 81-61. Like you said, Duke just had more talent. This Michigan State team didn't have any real star power or somebody that really could like take over the game for them. They kind of just had a bunch of people who played really well together, and they had a great coach in Tom Izzo, who he is the highest caliber, is a great coach. But when you have people like Tyus Jones, Matt Jones, Justice Winslow, these guys, they can play. They can play, and like you said, they clearly were the better team, and it just showed in their performance.
You see the road to the national championship. Wisconsin defeats Kentucky. Duke defeats Michigan State. Kyle, you ask, and you will receive here. Let's talk about the national championship game. Duke, Wisconsin from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. The young Blue Devils really grew up before our eyes en route to a 68-63 victory over the Wisconsin Badgers. 5th national championship in program history for the Duke Blue Devils. Also the 5th for head coach Mike Krzyzewski. And let's get your key moments and key players in this particular game, guys.
Okay, well, first I just want to say that I think this was one of the most highly touted matchups in national championship history, or as far as talent is concerned, in our lifetimes, really. Both Wisconsin and Duke featured a lot of NBA talent. Both had players that finished as All-Americans this season, and both had a handful of players that are going to go top 10 in the NBA draft next season. So realistically, we got everything we expected from this game. And of course, there were some players in the game who made a name for themselves, and one of them was Grayson Allen, who in that game alone earned himself a spot on the all-tournament team. Of course, he's a freshman on Duke, and he only played 8 minutes per game throughout the season. Well, he came to play last night, and realistically just showed us all what we're going to get out of him for the next few years. To be honest, I would not be surprised if 3 years from now we're all talking about records that he's setting at Duke, because this kid is a special player, and he showed it last night. Another key player in the game who did not do well, but his performance was key to Wisconsin's loss, was Sam Decker. We've praised him throughout the tournament. He's been doing really well. He averaged over 20 points per game coming into the national championship, and he only scored 12 on very low percentage shooting. Had he shot the ball better than he did, you have to assume that Wisconsin wins that game. He went 0 for 6 from 3. All he needs to do is knock down 2 of those, and the game's a whole different story. So those are a couple players right there. But as far as the entire game was concerned, it was really just exactly what we expected it to be, back and forth scoring from 2 really great teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2 players that stick out from my mind, one from each team. One was Tyus Jones. This guy, big shot after big shot after big shot. I had to jump out of my seat when I saw this boy shooting. He was absolutely sensational. 19 second half points. That's big time in the national championship game, a game where everything's on the line. You have one shot at this, you might not get back there again. And he took the most, made the most out of his moment. And he hit some really big shots for Duke when they were struggling and Wisconsin was going on that run. And then another player that really sticks out to me, that he had a solid game early going, Nigel Hayes, was very, very consistent for Wisconsin, especially when Kaminsky wasn't, Decker did not have the best game. But Nigel Hayes really took the pressure to Justice Winslow. And Justice Winslow was struggling guarding him because he had backed off a few times for a shot. And it was impressive to see this kid work. So even though they lost, those are the 2 players that stuck out to me. And I think, both teams gave a great effort. And like you said, I think it was a great game to watch, and I think this is one we'll remember for a long time.
Yeah, I want to go off script here a little bit. You mentioned Tyus Jones and the performance he had. A lot of people were wondering whether or not he's going to go to the NBA next year. Of course, he's only a freshman at Duke, and he had a great season. A lot of people had him projected to get picked in like the 20th pick area of the NBA draft next year. You have to assume that it's a little bit more intriguing for him to move on now, because he's probably going to get mentioned in the top 15, maybe even a lottery pick in the NBA next year after that performance last night and after his performance throughout the entire tournament.
Yeah, when you look at Tyus Jones, that game he had against North Carolina in Cameron Indoor when he took over that second half, that's when you kind of knew this kid has some real potential and he has a national championship ring. You go to college to groom yourself, win a championship. Perhaps he does go to the NBA, but let's talk a little bit more about this game. Grayson Allen, of course, you talked about the performance for him, 16 points for Grayson Allen. He had 18 points coming into the national championship game. And Duke's one-and-doners, they're freshmen, really played like veterans down the stretch. They outscored Wisconsin by 14 points in the final 13 minutes of the national championship game. So 5th national championship in program history for the Duke Blue Devils, and what a season. That puts a bow on the college basketball season. We loved every minute of it here on the Big Hit. So that will stop our discussion here with NCAA basketball for a while, but we will be back as soon as the season is here to talk about it once again. And we'd like to thank Kyle Condor and Malusi Kitchen for a great talk. When we return here to the Big Hit, we'll hit the baseball diamond and talk some Major League Baseball with opening day just around the corner. We'll be right back here on IUP-TV's The Big Hit. So guys, with the tournament coming up, what are IUP's chances this year?
I think they have a really good chance because the PSAC is not that strong compared to IUP. IUP moves the ball a lot quicker than most teams. They're very well-rounded. They've been playing together for a while. They've got a lot of big-time transfers. So I think that they have the edge over most of their opponents simply because they have experience. Experience gives you the edge any day of the week. So that's definitely why I think they can win the PSAC tournament for sure. What do you think, Norm?
And welcome back into the Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. It is our call to the bullpen as we talk some Major League Baseball with our MLB analysts, some real big baseball fans on set with Vincent Lowry and Chris Hayes. Guys, opening day has come and gone, and that marks the official start to the 2015 MLB season. And we're going to begin our discussion here talking about the NL Central a little bit here. Talk about the St. Louis Cardinals, who started off strong with a 3-0 win over the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. The Cardinals have been the model of consistency over the past number of years in baseball and have gone to 4 straight league championship series. Can the Cardinals make it 5 straight this season?
I definitely believe that the team from last year, a lot of them have come back from this year, but however, it will be a challenge for them with the Nationals breathing down their necks. However, with the addition of Jason Hayward and his performance on his first game for going 3-5, and also his Golden Glove winning of last year, and also the many awards he has also won with Atlanta, I believe that the Cardinals are definitely a good candidate for this league championship.
Yeah, the Cardinals always come up big in the playoffs. Every year they seem to be in the league championship series or division series. They beat the Pirates, my hometown team, a couple years ago. They certainly have the talent. They lost some guys, but they do have, like you said, Jason Hayward. They have a good rotation. Wainwright's always an ace. Lance Lynn, Michael Wacha, two other great guys in their rotation. So I think they have a really good chance.
Yeah, and when you look at the Cardinals, losing Shelby Miller did not help their endeavors, in the loss of Oscar Tavares certainly didn't help. But Vin, you talked about a little bit adding Jason Hayward really kind of fills in for that spot. So the Cardinals look like they are off and running here for another year of playoff baseball. It's really incredible. But let's talk about some trades that have happened here in the MLB. One of the biggest trades of the year happened just a little while ago with the Padres and Braves dealing Melvin Upton Jr. and Craig Kimbrell coming to the San Diego Padres in exchange for Carlos Quentin and Cameron Maybin. Many think the Braves kind of just blowing up this team here. But my question to you is, who do you think will benefit more from this trade between these two teams?
I believe the Padres, because they have also acquired what you said, Melvin Upton Jr., who I think is a very good outfielder, and also Craig Kimbrell, who is also a very good closer with last year with 47 saves. And the year before that with 50, both most and second most saves of his career. And I just believe that Padres is a great team for this year and also for this league.
Yeah, I mean, I know Atlanta is trying to rebuild, but I'm not really sure what they're trying to do. Like, they get Carlos Quentin and Cameron Maybin, 2 veterans who are kind of like in the back end of their career, and they get Craig Kimbrell. The Padres get Craig Kimbrell, who's a straight-up stud. Like you said, his stats are just mind-blowing. He really adds a good element to that Padres bullpen. So I think it's not even close. I think the Padres win this trade by a mile.
Yeah, when you look at closers, at least in my opinion, this is really not based off of anything, but I'm sure the numbers would kind of back me up. You'd have to put Craig Kimbrell right at the top of the list in terms of closers, right, with guys like Aroldis Chapman, Mark Melancon could also be thrown into that conversation. So San Diego really looking to make a run this year, and this trade should help them out. But let's go and move on to the Big Apple and talk about the Bronx Bombers a little bit. Alex Rodriguez returned to the team, returned to a nice ovation from the hometown crowd as well. How do you think he impacts the New York Yankees going into this season?
I believe at first he may be a poison to the Yankees. However, I believe the Yankees will be glad to have him back, and once midseason hits, he will be in midseason form, and I believe that he will then become an asset only if he gets his head on straight and he does know what he's doing, and I believe that he will make a great asset to the Yankees.
Yeah, I think he still has some talent left in the tank for sure. He missed all of last season, obviously. He's close to 40. I think he's like 38, 39. It's going to take more than him, though, for the Yankees to succeed. Their lineup's kind of old, to say the least. But A-Rod still, I think he still has some left in the tank, maybe 10, 15 home runs. Yeah. And he'll probably DH most of the time, but I think he can contribute for sure.
Yeah, that's one thing about the American League. It can kind of save guys' careers a little bit. Alex Rodriguez, a couple of bad knees, but taking a year off could have helped him a little bit. Maybe he'll be a little bit rested and can help provide a spark for the New York Yankees this year. But let's talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates now, who have been to the wild card game 2 years in a row and have hosted that game for 2 years in a row. But is this the year that the Pirates finally take the next step and reach the next round of the playoffs, or even make the playoffs for that matter?
I believe you can never really know with the Pirates. I mean, but based on the performance against the Reds, I do not think that it's too promising for the Pirates themselves, because before the Reds, Johnny Cueto stepped off the mound. None of the Pirates could hit him, but however, McCutchen's tying home run did bring up the spirits a little bit, and it pretty much is the same team from last year, but I believe they can do it, but I do not think there will be a Bucktober for the Pirates.
Yeah, it seems like the Pirates always kind of start off slow, and they did yesterday. Besides McCutchen's home run, they didn't really do much, but they certainly have the potential. Their lineup's solid. McCutchen, Starling Marte, Neil Walker, Josh Harrison, who had a breakout year last year. The rotation's good. Cole, Liriano kind of struggled yesterday, but I think he'll have a solid season. And Burnett, too. Their bullpen's good. I think the keys are Pedro Alvarez and Gregory Polanco, two guys who had Alvarez had a bad year last year. Polanco was his first year. I think if they put together solid years, the Pirates can maybe even overtake the Cardinals in the division. I doubt it, but it's a bold prediction. But if those guys stay healthy and everyone contributes, I think they have a chance.
Yeah, the Pirates, we all know they're a team that is going to score runs, although they only scored 2 against the Reds. Johnny Cueto, one of the best pitchers in the National League, potential Cy Young candidate of the National League, so a little give and take there. But the one thing that may be concerning for the Pirates is their bullpen. Tony Watson in particular, he's slated to be the setup man this year to Mark Melancon, and last year was almost automatic with those guys. So very early, only 1 game, and you have to think Tony Watson will be better more often than he is bad. Of course, you said Gregory Polanco, those ups and downs last year. Can he be consistent, and can Pedro Alvarez put a consistent season in as well? Good bench for the Pirates, so really up in the air with this NL Central. It's always competitive. Always seems like the NL Central has 3 or 4 teams jockeying for position, jockeying to get into the playoffs. But let's move on to our nation's capital and talk about the Washington Nationals, who have really been put in the tier of baseball's elite for the past number of years in terms of predictions. A lot of people have thought they had potentials to make playoff runs, maybe even win the World Series with their lineup and pitching staff, and they got even better, adding Max Scherzer to one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. So does this addition and the fact that they have some players coming back healthy as well make the Nationals a World Series favorite this season early on?
I definitely believe that. What you said, they were already considered a high-tier team and they're already elite team, but with the addition of Max Scherzer, I believe that last year he ranked 5th for the Cy Young Award, and also the year before that won the Cy Young Award. So I believe he is in his prime right now and picked him up at the right time, and just last year he had a second-best record of 18-5, and I believe this will make the Nationals an even a more elite team and maybe also, I think, a World Series favorite.
Yeah, the past few years, the Nationals have been the team I've picked to win the World Series, at least go represent the National League, and the Giants usually get there, or the Cardinals. But This year I'm going with the Nationals again, and I think Scherzer's going to get them over that hump. And the rotation with Scherzer, Strasburg, Zimmerman, those guys are all great. It's pretty stacked. Their health is a concern. Bryce Harper has been not too healthy the past few years, but he's still young. He had a home run yesterday in the opener, hoping for a good season from him. They have the talent, that's for sure. Every year they seem to be right up there, and I think this year's the year they get rid of those demons in the playoffs.
It's certainly all about putting it all together for the Washington Nationals. And Chris, you had talked quite a top of the rotation there. Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg. Pretty good 1-2 punch there to go out every 5 days. Jason Worth looks to be coming back off the DL soon as well. So baseball season is back, and it should be a good one. The first of 162 is in the books. We've got a long way to go, ladies and gentlemen, and we will follow along the entire season. So we hope you enjoyed this discussion here with Vincent Lowry and Chris Hayes. We'll take a break and come back and close the show out talking some National Hockey League as the push to the playoffs really heats up. We'll be back here on The Big Hit.
Success. We see it every day. Hundreds of majors and programs, bachelor's degrees to PhDs, small classes, internationally known faculty who are committed to your success. Real-world experiences to guide you on your career and life path. An alumni network 120,000 strong. I'm IUP President Mike Driscoll. Visit us. Find your success at Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
And welcome back into The Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to close out our show here tonight talking some National Hockey League in the penalty box as the push to the playoffs really kicks into an extra gear here, ladies and gentlemen. You really have to bring your A game this time of year or else things will not go well for you. And joining us for that, it's our NHL analyst, Sean Fritz on the far side there, Andrew Friend in the middle. I'm Josh Hill. Guys, final segment of the night, and we will begin talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins, a team that has been in disarray, dropping their last 3 games against non-playoff teams. Really a tough weekend for the Penguins. It's been a bit of a feast or famine kind of year for Pittsburgh, losing 9 of their last 12. Do you think they will get into the playoffs? I know, Sean, you probably have an update for us regarding the score as well.
Well, tonight they take on Ottawa, up in Ottawa. Pens have really struggled lately. Right now they are up 3-0 in the second period, which is big for them because the win tonight clinches them a playoff berth. And maybe that'll be good for them kind of just to settle themselves down a little bit. Like you said, they've lost the last 3 games, 2 to Philadelphia, a cross-state rival, and another one to Columbus in between there. They really just haven't been playing well at all lately, and there's no hiding that. Losses like Chris Letang on the blue line and Christian Ehrhoff have really hurt them. They've got a completely new defense core, it seems, playing in front of Marc-Andre Fleury. Evgeny Malkin's also been really banged up lately. He's missed a couple of games. They've had a lack of production, I think, which has hurt them as well. I think it's definitely important for them to get in because, whether they were up 3-0, then I think that they were going to get in anyways. I think, with just having to win this game tonight and clinching a spot, I think the road was a lot more easier for them than it is for Ottawa. We'll talk about that later, but I think the Pens find ways to get in the playoffs. They've done it, several years in a row now. And I just think it's going to be good for them maybe to just kind of take it easy for the next week until the playoffs start and the first round starts next Wednesday. Kind of get their focus together, maybe gains a little bit more of the chemistry that they've had at other times throughout the year. And hopefully that'll propel them to a good series to start off the playoffs with.
And disarray is, as Josh said, is definitely an understatement, I think, for right now. I do believe they are going to go to the playoffs. Like you said, you believe the same thing. I believe the relationship between fans and Pittsburgh, the team, is a lot like a father and son. And a son wants to go to the park. He asks his dad, he says, "Dad, I want to go to the park." He says, "All right, son, I'll take you in 82 minutes. All right. So the son, he's all excited. He's, having a great time. Finally, those 82 minutes are reached. Now, one of 2 things the dad's going to do. The dad is either going to take him to the park. He lasts 10 minutes, but the boy wants an hour. 10 minutes. That's too early. Or he says, I'm too tired. I can't go. Now, the reason why I put it in those terms is because every year for the past 5 or so years, they have made it to the first round and gone out. You know, we want that Stanley Cup. As fans, we want that Stanley Cup. We want, to go far. But they aren't proving it. Their defense right now, subpar. Yes, injuries, unfortunate, but, need to pick it up. Also, offense. Where are we scoring at? We need to start scoring. We need to start making plays, making moves. And right now we aren't doing that. Yes, they're going to make it to the playoffs. No, I don't believe they're going to make it far, and that's a shame. It really is a shame.
Yeah, no question about it. The Pittsburgh Penguins have been to the Park every year since Sidney Crosby came into the league as a rookie, and they were able to play at the Park for that entire hour in 2009 as they won the Stanley Cup. It's all about what they can do now. The past couple of years, they've been competing for the President's Trophy, and they have been a team that has been really the favorites going in, and they have underachieved. This year, they're probably going to make it into the playoffs. As you said, Sean, a 3-0 lead over Ottawa. It has to be a regulation win to clinch a berth tonight, but coming in, maybe a bit of a different scenario, see what they can do, and losing 9 of 12. One of the worst stretches of the season coming at one of the worst times as well. But let's look at the Western Conference here and talk about some teams who are vying for the final wild card spot. The Winnipeg Jets, Calgary Flames, Los Angeles Kings, all looking for that final spot in the West. Which team do you think will be on the outside of the playoffs looking in come season's end?
Well, as of right now, the team that secures that last wild card spot is the Winnipeg Jets. They've got 94 points. The Calgary Flames are in third place in their division, and LA is on the outside looking in right now. All three teams have 3 games left. They all play Tuesday night, Thursday night, and Saturday. And the weird thing about this is that these teams play against each other, so they have a chance to kind of control their own destiny, determine their own fate, if you will. I know LA and Calgary have a big game set Thursday night, and then Calgary also plays Winnipeg on Saturday to close out the regular season. This one's a much more difficult conference to predict than the Pittsburgh Penguins situation. Pittsburgh controls their own fate. They win and they're in. Winnipeg does in a sense because they lead with 94 points right now, where Calgary and LA only have 93. So Winnipeg with 94 points, if they win these next 3 games, just win out in regulation, they secure their spot. It's a bit more difficult when you bring up Calgary and LA because, like I mentioned, they do play on Thursday night. They each play tonight on a Tuesday. They've got the late game, so we'll know early this morning Eastern time where they stand going into their matchup on Thursday night. My opinion, they should both enter their game Thursday with 95 points, both securing a win tonight against LA plays at Edmonton and Calgary plays Arizona, 2 teams that they should beat. And then moving forward, it will definitely we'll be able to determine who's going to take that last spot in the division or in the wild card or a wild card spot after their game Thursday. I think if Winnipeg can't win out these next couple games, I know they've got a tough one tonight against St. Louis, who's atop their division in the West. If they can't secure 3 straight victories here, they're going to need some help as well, just like Calgary and LA will. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. My bold prediction going into the playoffs is LA will slide in to that 3rd spot in the Pacific Division, and Calgary will fall out and just miss. They're a young group, and they're definitely going to be back. I just don't know if this is their year with an experienced team like LA, and we know the type of team they are when it gets to be this time of the year.
Exactly, and I love what you said, this time of the year for the LA Kings. Every single year they've done it, and they've been able to make it to the playoffs and make it far in the playoffs. It's like something clicks in their mind.
It's just all about getting hot at the right time.
Exactly.
It's kind of like that in all sports, but this one in particular.
Yeah, and they know exactly when to get hot, and that's what I love about the Kings. Love them for that. But anyways, on to the question. It's really going to be a toss-up between the Jets and the Flames. As you touched on, they do play each other. They play each other the last game. Now, I know that's sort of cliche, who's going to win to get in. But I believe that is exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be Jets, Flames, whoever wins that one gets in. And I have my money on the Jets. I think they're playing better. I think they're going to get in.
It definitely could work out like that. There are so many possibilities because, the only thing that I've really touched on here is regulation victories. There's also overtime losses, the regular and overtime win column, which that plays a huge factor in tiebreakers heading into the playoffs. There's a bunch of different factors that can go into this, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see over the next couple of days.
Exactly. The point system, how it's set up, is it makes it more of a competitive game, which is what I love.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no question about it. Looking at these three teams as a whole, you would have to think Calgary, Winnipeg, at least I pegged them to have a down year compared to where they are now, reaching for a playoff berth. Certainly overachieved in my book, and I think I speak for the entire NHL when I say they would be just fine if the LA Kings missed the playoffs this season. I don't think they would be too concerned one bit. They might send them a card or something. But let's talk about the Ottawa Senators. We talked about the Penguins playing the Senators, currently leading Pittsburgh, winning over Ottawa right now. They're playing the Penguins right now, as we said. Big playoff implications in this game and big playoff implications in their upcoming games against the New York Rangers, Philadelphia Flyers, also on the schedule. So do you see the Senators, a young team, making the playoffs this year? Is it just a little bit too much to ask for this season?
I think it's a shame what's kind of happened to Ottawa here. They kind of got the short end of the stick. They've had a great second half of the year. They got really, really hot there for a while, and I don't think they're going to be able to sneak into this one. They're coming into the game tonight. They're 2 points behind Pittsburgh for a wild card spot. They've got some tough games coming up after this, and even with a win tonight, it does secure them a spot. They still are going to need more help, and that's kind of the kicker of all this is controlling your own destiny plays a huge part trying to get in at this time of the year. And when you're relying on other teams for help, sometimes it just doesn't work out like that. So I don't think they're going to be able to get in. They play New York at Madison Square Garden, who in my opinion is the best team in the NHL right now. They lead the NHL in points with 109, and I think that for them to knock off New York at home, who's competing for the President's Trophy right now, I just don't see it happening. Definitely, not in overtime, so they would give up a point, but they're looking for as many points as they can. So I guess that would help them in a sense. And then they also have Philadelphia on Saturday, and Philadelphia, granted they're not in the playoffs, but they've played really, really well against teams with, positive records and teams who are competitive and in the playoffs. Pittsburgh, for example, they beat Pittsburgh twice this past week, and Chicago about 2 weeks ago. And that was their whole issue this year. But playing them at home on the last game of the season when they would be playing for some pride, I think that's not an easy task whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with you. I said 2 weeks ago how much I liked the Ottawa Senators and how they were playing. But unfortunately, it just isn't good enough. They aren't going to make the playoffs. It's a shame, really is. I would have liked to see them in the playoffs, but they just, like you said, got the short end of the stick, and it really is a shame. But there has to be losers.
They're a good young group of players. They saw some really good things this year out of some guys. Mike Hoffman, example, he led the team in goals this year. They're going to keep getting better, and I think that's a key for Ottawa Senator fans and hockey fans in general. They're a good team. Andrew Hammond stepped in between the pipes and played phenomenal. There's nothing but good things to come, I think, if they can kind of keep playing how they did and carry this on to next season.
Yeah, they're a younger team, and that's what's great about it is, whenever, like, for example, whenever Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, we're starting out, we looked all right. But then, over the years, we got better, finally got that Stanley Cup. I think that's exactly what might happen to Ottawa.
Yep,
over the years, get better, finally get into the playoffs, maybe get a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, Ottawa's certainly a team trending in the right direction, and it's incredible to think that they are doing so with veteran players like Chris Neal out. So those younger guys were kind of forced into this role where they are at. What a turnaround. Sean, you'd mentioned it. Just want to reiterate. Before the All-Star break, Ottawa sat one game below 500. You talk about a tremendous second half of the season, sniffing the playoffs. Looks like they may come up just short. Pittsburgh also owns the tiebreaker with those 2 points. So if they would be tied going into the end of the year, Pittsburgh would get the nod over Ottawa. But looks like nothing but good things coming from the Ottawa Senators. And let's talk about some teams who are doing some really good things right now. The Canadiens, Rangers, Blues, and Ducks, all atop their respective divisions here in the National Hockey League as the season winds down. Who will end the season with the President's Trophy in their possession? Who will finish the NHL season with the most points this year?
I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. I think it's got to be the New York Rangers. In my opinion, they're the best team in the NHL right now. They've got 3 games left, just like all these teams do. They've got New Jersey, who's a rival, but is older and digressing. They really took a couple steps back when they traded one of their top scorers in Jaromir Jagr, which is ironic because of his age. You know, they are an older team, but I think the New York Rangers are going to knock them off tonight. That'll be 2 more points, 111, and I think they win at least one of their 2 games coming up with Ottawa on Thursday night, as we mentioned, and then on Saturday against the Washington Capitals, who are having a really, really good year as well. I think they get 2 points out of one of those, if not both games, and that would put them out of reach of all the other teams, like you mentioned, Montreal, St. Louis, and Anaheim, and they'll take home the President's Trophy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Without a doubt, President's Trophy is going to New York. Without a doubt. As Josh said 2 weeks ago, they're clicking on all cylinders. And that's right. They have been able to work hard all year long, and it's really paying off, and it's going to show whenever they are hoisting that President's Trophy.
Well, they made some moves at the deadline that made it very obvious that that they're going for it this year after getting defeated last year in the Cup final by the Los Angeles Kings. They picked up guys like Keith Yandel, James Shepard from San Jose, so they're moving forward towards a Stanley Cup run again. Henrik Lundqvist coming back from injury, that's big for them. I think this definitely could be the year, but I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, when you look at the Rangers, they're just a solid team from top to bottom. It starts with Henrik Lundqvist, as you said, but they have the right mix of offense and defense. They can score, they can keep the puck out of their net, they do a good job blocking shots, pretty good on special teams as well. Just really a good formula for a team to win and have success, and you certainly look at the standings, see where the Rangers are, and they look to be the favorites for the President's Trophy, at least amongst the set here in the Big Hit. But guys, let's talk about the Stanley Cup here a little bit and talk about the conferences in the Stanley Cup, because the Western Conference has been dominant in the Stanley Cup the past number of years. They've won 4 out of the last 5. But when you look at it, the Eastern Conference has some contenders. Many believe the Western Conference is so good, teams can kind of beat up on each other a whole bunch to face some really tough competition, maybe leaving some room for the Eastern Conference. So which conference do you think will win the Stanley Cup this year as we close out our discussion here this evening?
I think, again, it's really, really hard to tell because once you get to this time of year, 7-game series, anything can happen. Anybody who's an avid hockey fan knows that. The Western Conference has got some good teams. St. Louis, Anaheim, division leaders right now. Nashville has played really well in the Central Division. Chicago loses Patrick Kane, so that hurts a little bit. But again, we talked about Los Angeles earlier. If they can slip in as the 8, that's not somebody Anaheim wants to see in their first-round matchup. So like you said, Josh, I think they could kind of beat up on each other a little bit. I think they really drain on you as a player, 7-game series against tough opponents like that. But the Eastern Conference, they've got some good teams this year, most notably the New York Rangers, like we've mentioned. And then I also think the Montreal Canadiens, I think people aren't really giving them enough credit. They're a good hockey team, and last year they went to the conference finals and eventually got beat by the New York Rangers. But Carey Price went down in that series. I'm not saying if Carey Price was in that New York wouldn't have made it to the final, but Carey Price has had an MVP-type season. He's played phenomenal in between the pipes all year. They've been a solid hockey team since the beginning of the season, leading their division, the Atlantic Division. I think that they could definitely get hot and ride Carey Price into the Cup final, possibly win it. Same with the New York Rangers. Definitely a toss-up, though, but I like the the East's chances this year.
Yeah, exactly. It all depends, is what I think. It all depends on the Rangers. I think that they are going to go to the Stanley Cup this year. If any year, this is their year. This is their year to get the cup, if anything. If not, I think it's going to go to the St. Louis Blues. It's going to go back. It's going to go to the West. But as I said, it all depends on the Rangers. All I know is that one of these teams is going to get that hour in the park with Daddy. So.
Well, the only thing with the St. Louis Blues, I agree with you, they're a heck of a hockey team, but they've had an issue lately of getting over the hump of beating the Chicago Blackhawks in the playoffs. And like I said, without Patrick Kane this year, maybe they do get over that hump. But it's definitely just going to be a wait-and-see game, which all of this is. It's just hypothetical talk. But.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Yeah, it is hypothetical, but hey, it's good to look at, I guess.
Yeah, no question. Definitely good to look at and good to talk hockey. We had a great hockey discussion here. It'll be interesting to see who can hoist the Stanley Cup this year. A lot of times it's a team you don't even expect. Sometimes, very rarely I should say, do the favorites ever win the Stanley Cup. So great hockey discussion with Sean Fritz and Andrew Friend. That will wrap it up here for The Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank you for tuning in. For everyone behind the scenes, Director Michael Maddenley Martone, Kyle Condor, Malusi Kitchen, all of our camera operators as well, Sarah Rudy, Randy Epstein, and Logan Custer. Our promotions director is Vaughn Dalzell. My name is Josh Hill. So Indiana, enjoy the hockey, enjoy the baseball, and we'll come to you next week here on The Big Hit.